Right, I'm going to talk first about the IHBC and give a general sort of rundown of things. But what I'd really like before that to do is to have Henry Russell, who's our interim education secretary, as we keep calling him, but we do like him lots because even interim is really, really good in terms of volunteering work. But he's also got a huge number of other activities that he's involved with. And I thought, as Henry is very much a key person right across, particularly England, but with RICS even beyond that as well, I thought it might be useful for him to say a few words just about sort of his activities and interests and operations and things, if that's okay. Do you want to do that first, Henry?
Basically, my background is I'm a chartered surveyor, and I spent a lot of time, my early career, working in the Cotswolds as a surveyor, and felt that I was dealing with a lot of listed buildings, and I really ought to put that into some sort of educational framework, so that I really knew what I was doing. And so I did the Reading course. I'm now course director of that, and I have been now for 15 years or so. So I did that 20 odd years ago. So for me, that was a great help to make sure that I knew what I was doing and was I doing it properly and right. And also I think, and I hope that what you will find out is that in your respective courses that you'll go into the course with an idea that, you know, I need skills in practical this or practical that, and perhaps a little bit about knowledge of buildings and the architecture. And I also know a little bit more about the law. But I think that what this will do is open you up to so many sort of different influences that you'll probably come out of it either finding that you sort of tweak your career path in a different way than you thought when you started, or you just get a completely different job altogether. So I'm sure it will open up a lot of doors to you. I mean, I know that through my course, you know, on the planning side, you know, the heads of Nathaniel Litchfield and Turley, sort of two of the big planning practices, have both been through my course at one time. You know, a lot of architects, surveyors, archaeologists have been through, and you know, they're now very often sort of heading up their sort of heritage divisions in their own practices. So if you're working in a big practice that doesn't do, I know I was talking to somebody earlier, if you know, you may find yourself being, you know, the heritage lead in your practice because you know what the form is. So there's all sorts of doors like that that I think can open up to you. And a key part of that, of course, dare I say it, will be IHBC membership as well. So that's what today is all about, showing not only what the career paths are, but how the IHBC can sort of help you get there as well. A few other things that I'm involved with. I do a lot of work with churches. And Sarah is a member of my course, and she's had churches on the first module sort of up to there, so she probably doesn't want to hear this. But I am a DAC chairman, Diocese Advisory Committee chairman, and I chair Gloucester DAC, and I've done that probably now for far too long, it's just over 10 years. And I'm also a member of the Church Buildings Council, which is the central Anglican body that advises on churches. And that has some very interesting casework. One of the major bits of casework I have been involved in, and still am actually, is at Bath Abbey. The 5th most visited church building, and that's including cathedrals, so it's Canterbury, St Paul's, Westminster Abbey, Durham Cathedral, and then the next most visited church is Bath Abbey. And they have a major programme for what we call in the churches sector reordering, which is changing the design of the interior largely to remove pews, and they also want to take up the floor. Big issues about taking up the floor. Something like 4,000 burials underneath it, believe it or not. That may be a conservative estimate, because they haven't done the archaeology yet. Actually, we're trying to leave the archaeology to a future date. And so the result of that is a floor that waves up and down and has sunk in all sorts of places. There was a Gilbert Scott restoration of the 1860s that dealt with it to a certain extent, but now big structural repairs are needed. They want to put in a new floor. We're probably getting to the point where we can actually agree the structure that retains the archaeology sort of reasonably untouched underneath. And what they do want to do is to use the water, the wastewater from the Roman baths, because they're very close together. It's almost from here to the other side of the room. It's how close the Roman baths are to Bath Abbey. The wastewater at the moment just goes in a drain and out into the River Avon. So what they want to do is put that through a complicated heat exchanger and use it for an underfloor heating system. So there's a lot of sort of technical wizardry going on to try and develop that. So that's churches very quickly, and so I get involved very much in the ecclesiastical exemption, faculty jurisdiction, all of those sort of things that are not really understood by many people outside the churches sector, and often Julia's laughing there because she's worked for the Diocese of Gloucester for some years. And there's quite a few planners who don't really understand what the ecclesiastical exemption is from listed building consent, basically. And I can tell you more about that over lunch if you're really interested. Other things that I'm involved in, the Heritage Alliance, which you may or may not have heard of. It's a sort of policy grouping, and it has about 100 members, including the IHBC and a whole lot of others. And that does a tremendous amount of work in representing the heritage sector to government. Last week, because I chair the spatial planning advocacy group, last week, because certain people couldn't do it, our chairman was Lloyd Grossman, he was out in Rome, and the deputy chairman couldn't do it. I went and represented the Heritage Alliance before a select committee in the House of Lords with Duncan Wilson from Historic England and Ross Kersley from Prince's Regeneration Trust. The House of Lords Select Committee was looking at heritage and the built environment, and so I spent a very scary hour or so being interviewed with them in the Select Committee, and hopefully they will be reporting in about 3 months' time. I'm not quite sure what the sort of total breadth of their report is going to be looking at, but IHBC also gets very involved in sort of heritage issues, that kind of thing. Policy issues, and did send in a response to this particular call for evidence.
Work in a straight line and then go up through a particular sort of career progress line. It's often extremely variable and often has breaks in it as well, you know. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, I don't think I haven't ended up where I thought I would 30 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the things. It's not a simple sort of story of where you go or where you end up, and I think that's one of the things to remember when you're working in conservation, or even if your path is sort of just intersecting with conservation occasionally. And those different threads, policy, the practical, the surveying, the ecclesiastical, the church issue, all of those are things that, you know, you just come across almost in a day sometimes in a lot of the time in this area. So flexibility, lots of broad thinking around what the issues are absolutely critical, and those are the things that we try to bring out when we're looking, for example, at membership applications. You're able to think around problems, you're able to look at it from a totally other perspective, you're able to see things from other people's points of views, and that wide range of experience really underpins that. And I think in your courses, what we do is we look at the content of courses and we say, do these draw out these different threads, and if so, we do that formal recognition. The courses are very much about drawing out those elements. Obviously, in your courses this year, things like your dissertation will be much more to the front of your mind, as well as the sort of the term-linked exercises and things. But one of the threads today will be the dissertation side of things, and we'll be talking a bit more about it, rather asking you a little bit more about those sort of issues and giving you sort of ideas of what you might want to think about further as the